Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Libby Shaw Show podcast. As mentioned in recent podcasts, until just over a month ago, I hadn't driven for 13 years. I'd had a car right before I moved from Auckland to Sydney, but then when I moved to Sydney, I just hadn't needed one because either I was able to walk to places or I could use public transport. A month ago, of course, that all changed, and I purchased my fifth car, which is a 2007 silver Holden Barina sedan. So I purchased the car for work purposes and limited personal use, which, if I'm honest, is increasing. I still don't really use it much for personal use other than when, I've just finished work and I want to stop at the gym on the way home. But whether or not I do that really depends on if there's parking available, and given I live in a high density area, there isn't always parking available. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about parking. That's not what today's podcast is about. That's just a brief background to how I started talking about this topic. So this podcast today is of course going to be about the things I've learned since driving again. So there are two really big things that I've learned since I've been driving again for just over a month. And the first thing is that Sydney drivers are incredibly impatient and have absolutely no concept of, say, following distances. Like, nobody likes being stuck in traffic, but you know what people like even less? Being in an avoidable car accident, getting a speeding fine, or a fine for running a red light. I cannot count the number of times that drivers have honked their horn at me because I refuse to run red lights or speed. And while I'm talking about that, the speed limit is a limit, as in the maximum that you are legally allowed to drive at. It's not the speed you must drive at. It's not the minimum. It is the maximum legal speed. And the other thing is that most impatient drivers I've encountered are male drivers. With these reckless attitudes to driving, it is no wonder that they are overrepresented in crash statistics and pay higher insurance premiums. As my work depends on a clean driver's license, I simply cannot and will not risk a speeding fine or demerit points or damage to my car. And that is also one reason why I don't parallel park. Okay, so I am talking a little bit about parking. I hate parallel parking. I just don't want to risk damaging my car or someone else's. I'd rather park further away. That said, I am great at manoeuvring out of narrow, one-lane, dead-end streets. I absolutely hate it, of course, but I can do it. It normally takes several moves, including reversing, going forward, and turning, and, well, you get the picture. With all the time that I've spent encountering impatient drivers, I've actually realised that I'm a really patient driver, even if that means I have to sit at lights for, 5 to 7 rounds before it's safe to turn. Maybe I'm overcautious, but I'd rather be overcautious than have a car crash. The other big thing that I've learned since driving again, and more specifically through buying an older car, is a massive amount about car maintenance. Had I not bought an older car, I would know absolutely nothing about maintenance. Since I've had my car, I've had to take it to the mechanic and auto locksmiths for a few issues. So the first issue I had to take it in for was a key issue. So I actually had no idea that modern cars have a fob inside of the key that communicates with the engine so that it will start. I had absolutely no idea of that before. I also had to take the car in for an issue that caused it to stall. I think one of the pipes related to the fuel line had a leak, and so that needed a new part, but was a relatively easy fix. And then a couple of weeks ago, I had another issue where my gear shift would get stuck in park. So that means it wouldn't release when I wanted to start the car and put it into drive. Once it was going, of course, it was fine. Anyway, a couple of weeks ago, I'd just come off a busy highway and put the car in park, like just around the corner. And I was not parked because there wasn't parking on that street. And so I was completely stuck, so I had to get that fixed. Luckily, no new parts were required for that. At the same time, though, I decided to also get the broken horn fixed, and that did need a new part. It needed a new clock spring to be fitted and installed. And I learned through that process that the clock spring in the horn is also linked to the airbags, which is essential for safety. Like, that's something that I absolutely had no idea about. There are, of course, still a few other issues that I do need to get looked at in the coming weeks and months. I do need to get the central locking looked at, and that's probably actually next on the list, because this week I had issues with the driver's door not locking, so I had to get an auto locksmith to get that fixed as well. It's all good now. Like, I mean, it's good enough for now, but basically, yeah, I do need to get the central locking fixed. And also, I really want to get the air conditioning fixed. Like, the air conditioning does work. I just think it could work a little bit better. And then once I've done the essential repairs, I'll also be getting a new car stereo installed, but that's just a personal preference, just because I prefer aftermarket car stereos rather than the factory stereos. And then there is also probably a bigger issue, which is that the engine is noisy. I don't know if that's a bigger issue, but it's on my list of future repairs. Anyway, my point is, I had absolutely no idea about any of these things until purchasing the car. And while some people would say that, you know, I bought a lemon, I don't see it that way. I just see it as I bought an older car that has needed a few repairs to get it in good working order. And once it is, you know, fully fixed, like once everything's done, I've actually saved money, you know, like why would I spend $30,000 on a new car that, you know, and have monthly payments? Like, that just seems to be really costly and a waste of money. And another thing, and this is probably just through lack of attention to roads around me, but I had no idea there were so many toll roads in Sydney. I mean, of course I knew Sydney had toll roads, but what I didn't know was how easy it is to drive on a toll road without even realizing until you get the toll notice in the mail. I have now set up an account with Link so I can avoid the administration fees. Even though the state government did announce this week they'll be scrapping those administration maintenance, whatever you want to call them, fees, and capping tolls at $50 per week. I avoid toll roads, generally speaking, so I'm not really sure how much either of those things will affect me. But it is good to know that even if I do use toll roads in the future, my weekly fee will be capped. And I've also learned that Sydney's suburban roads, particularly those around Erskineville and Newtown, are really not built for modern cars. And a lot of people have these massive, basically they're like US style pickup trucks. And whenever I see them, I'm just like, they don't belong in the city. You just don't need those in the city, but the streets aren't big enough for them. And it's not like the streets can be, you know, rebuilt or whatever. And finally, the last thing that I've learned since driving again is how much I needed a car. And I'm honestly so confused that I went 13 years, yes, 13 years without owning a car. Now that I've had a car for a month, I actually don't know how I did that. Even though I do predominantly use my car for work purposes, it is so convenient, which is probably why I am committed to looking after my car and why I get the repairs done whenever they need to be done. Next time I buy a car, though, hopefully not for 3 to 5 or even up to 10 years, I will be going back to Volkswagen, though, as they've been the best cars that I've had. But that said, I'm pretty happy with my Holden, and I have definitely earned back the cost of the vehicle itself and some of the repairs. So when I say it's been an investment, like, it really has been an investment, and it's made such a positive difference to my life. Anyway, that is all for episode 15 of the Libby Shaw Show podcast. I'm not sure what I'll be talking about in my next podcast because there's quite a lot of news at the moment involving Taylor Swift. So I can't rule out talking about her in the next podcast. But I don't really want to talk about her wedding until there's news that's actually set in stone and until there's confirmed information. I don't want to get on the speculation bandwagon. But anyway, thank you for tuning in to episode 15. If you like this podcast, then feel free to like and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you next time, hear you next time. That's all for episode 15. Thanks for tuning in.